Welcome to the MaxBet Podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything gaming. I'm Landon Jones, here with Mike McKiskey. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the MaxBet Podcast. We're here today to entertain you on your drive to work. If you're at work, if you're at home, MaxBet is here.
It's like, yeah, so thanks for intro. I never know what to say in those, so it's always good you do.
I'm going to let you do the welcome introing us in. Everybody, Mike McKiskey.
Thanks, bud. So it's good to be home, right? Like we went on a whole road trip. Yeah, it's good to be home.
So if I come up to the mic and just say, hey, it's good to be home, everybody's like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Generally.
Okay, so it's good to be home. That's the intro.
Bud, we were on the road last week.
Oh, we were on the road,
interviewing the high-powered ladies at Choctaw. Just learning life lessons all the way through.
You got to do it. You got to learn those life lessons.
It's amazing. I just wish.
What was your life lesson that you learned interviewing the three ladies?
Just that. Sometimes you just got to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Because like all three of them were kind of like saying, remember back, they're going, well, we just started this. I don't know. We put up 14 pull tab machines and then we were counting money in Tupperware.
Yeah.
And you're going, so that led to what is now a 4-diamond, whatever it
22 properties.
22 properties, big resort, over 10,000 games.
Own healthcare system.
All of it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And all they did was just start, right? So they take the first step. And they didn't know what they were doing, but they worked it out. That's what I feel like we're doing every day. It's like, I don't know. Hey, people talk to us. How do you do a podcast? We don't even know.
This is my favorite topic. Let's talk about this.
Let's get into it. Go for it.
I have at least 1 to 2 people a week call me and they're like, hey, I'm going to start a podcast. What do I need?
Which you should. We are big 100%. Fans of people taking a leap and doing it. Yeah.
But there's so much more to just say I'm starting a podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm like, great. What are you using? I don't know. Tell me. It's like,
Well, it really depends on how much you want to spend money on.
To be completely honest, I have no I'm still trying to figure it out. So if you're asking me like what to do, I mean, if you're going to start, this could be an entire podcast on how to create your own podcast.
Lana's going to rant here.
But you're not wrong. If you want to do it, just do it.
Just do it.
You got to just start somewhere and then figure it out as you go.
Buy some Nikes, I guess, and just do it.
You have to have Nikes.
If you're going to say just do it, you have to have Nikes.
Can I go to another point here?
You can, yeah.
I always love the guy like with the just do it or the success t-shirt. It's always just a fucking loser. It's just someone that's like success. And then they're like, that is success. I don't want to be successful.
I don't want to emulate whatever your program is.
Have you ever noticed that?
I've noticed that.
Yeah.
I was laughing. So what I got, somebody gave me, or I don't know where I got it from, but it was like a tank top. It was a Nike tank top. And it just said on the back, it said run, R-U-N, check mark, right? And I'm going, literally the thing I like the least in the world is running. And so I was a little lighter at the time. It was around when I got married. And so I actually was running a little more, but I was like, I'm never going to wear this. Because any runner on the street, like you're a runner, you run. Like I'm like, they would look at me and go, that ain't a run. What's this guy doing, right? He's faking the thing. Like it just feels disingenuous. So I try to avoid it, but I do notice people going, hustle hard. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, the hustle hard.
What are you doing, right? What are you hustling on, right? Not saying maybe you are, maybe you're not, but it doesn't come across, right? Because like you wouldn't want a guy like with my frame going fitness. It's like, look, I can lift a few weights, I could do a few things, but it's not like no one's wakes up to do a diet plan and go, I want Kiski's body. That's not the thing, right? So it's like, it's just funny to me that you're right, though. Guys my size will buy the fitness shirt and you're going, all right, maybe that's your own inspiration.
I want to wear a shirt that just says gains. Like I'm this big muscle man.
Just hammering.
Gains.
They're like, bud, are they still coming for you? All good.
Apparently we're doing a podcast right now.
As it turns out, we're live.
As it turns out,
or at least
we're
on
live.
The mics, yeah. So news recently is starting to leak out that in January, news. Q1, Caesar's probably going to sell a strip property. So far,
that's a big deal.
As of now, there's no. They're like, we're looking at it because obviously with the Cosmo thing, there was big money in it. So, do you want to guess?
Who buys it?
2 sides of the game. Which property they're going to sell?
Yeah.
Who buys?
Ooh.
Because by the way, anyone listening, we have no clue. I just saw earlier CEO of Caesars said, look, it's in our plan. We're going to look at doing that early Q1. So,
well, I hate to say, because we just interviewed the ladies that are running Choctaw, but I'd like to see like, in Oklahoma, Chickasaws or Choctaws.
yeah.
I would like to see one of them have a Vegas, style property. Yeah, that's who I would like to see, even or even like a Pachanga, right?
Yeah.
I would like to see.
Sam Manuel's coming to the Palms.
Yeah.
Mohegan's here now with the Virgin,
Yeah.
right? So you got tribes in the business in the Vegas city. So what do you think? We'll start with the first thing. Which casino do you think they'll put on the block and say, take it?
I mean, you just said it yourself, the strip property.
Well, but it's Caesars Corporation. They have Caesars, they have Bally's, they have Paris, they have Cromwell, they have Link, they have where's Dre's? I think that's Cromwell. They have Planet Hollywood. I mean, it's not like it's one property, so it's.
I would say Planet Hollywood.
Yeah, that's the one I would.
On the last kicker, because that's the one that like started off so strong. You don't hear about Planet Hollywood anymore.
Yeah,
it's kind of lost.
You don't.
Yeah.
Fun fact: I went to prom at the Planet Hollywood back when it was the Aladdin. It's like we went to prom night, and then we did a Snoop Dogg and Mystical concert at the Aladdin before we went upstairs to a bathtub full of beers and stuff. But different life doing prom in Vegas.
I got beat up at Planet Hollywood. That was like,
why? What were
we
you
all had
doing?
a story.
Did you pick a fight, or they just looked at
My
you? My
friend picked the fight, and I was like, "Hey guys!" And then all of a sudden, I wake up, a security guard's like, "How many fingers am I holding up?" I said, "How'd I do?" He goes, "Not well. My shirt's ripped." I was like, "Well, I don't remember much." And then I picked my stuff up and went home.
You're like, your buddy's like, didn't you notice the guy that we were fighting had gains on his shirt? Like, you should have thought that we weren't going to win this fight. He was gaining all the time, just constantly pumping.
The story is actually funnier, but I'm not going to get into it. But yeah, Planet Hollywood would be a good one.
And I think what we haven't mentioned, but it is a tribe. I would think Seminoles has some. I don't know if they're interested or not. I just feel like they do such a good job, and they're so worldwide. Like they could easily come to Vegas.
That would be a good buy for Seminoles. Yeah.
No inside knowledge of that. Just a total guess.
So you would like to see Seminoles, and you think Planet Hollywood as well?
I don't know if I'm rooting for Seminoles. Yeah. I just think that they are a likely entrant, and but I do think Planet Hollywood would be cool. Plus, because you're going to want, like, I think that one of the valuable things is that bridge to Cosmo. The bridge, like if you Planet Hollywood, you could bridge to Cosmo, bridge to Aria. Like it's a pretty good.
So you just flipping this here. So your Seminoles just say.
Yeah, I'm team.
Yep, team Seminoles. You buy Planet Hollywood. What do you name it? What would you name it?
Well, they're all Hard Rocks down there. You got rid of a Hard Rock brand already in Vegas because they rebranded it Virgin. So that's your natural
Hard Rock,
right? It's your natural guess. So if I was odds maker, I would bet that they would name it Hard Rock, right?
Yeah, it's easy.
But if you're asking me what would I name it, I don't know, something cooler.
That's a good point. I picked out terrible.
Yeah, that's okay. But like, what would I name it? I don't know. I always thought it would be fun to do something just completely random.
Yeah.
Like on CSI when it's like, oh, you're at the lucky, the Dragon's Lair casino, like something weird that people just go, what the hell name is that? But then they remember it because it's so off the path. I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't what would you name it?
No, it's a good point. I'll tell you right now.
I've
always wanted, Fountain Blue would have been a good option. But
as a name or
no, the property. So my stepdad's last name is Moore, Moore.
Got it.
So I always wanted,
Mr. Moore.
Yes. What's up, Steven? I always wanted to build a hotel next to the Wynn with Moore. So Wynn, Moore at my property.
Wynn Moore.
Yes. No, good.
So but they would have to read the two together. So,
you got to do it. Yeah. You got to learn how to read. Wynn Moore. Maybe it's bad. I always thought it was cool.
I don't know.
Based off of your facial reaction, I'm just going to go back to the drawing board.
Well,
more times.
More thought is required on that before we launch it.
But I need more money to be able to do that.
Question. So neither of us.
One thing I'll tell you is that
neither of us are buying whatever property it is. That much is clear. But it would be interesting.
With these new mics that we have, I could barely pay for parking at the Wynn. It's getting expensive now.
You know what I like about the Wynn?
What do you like?
Random plug for them, free parking.
So another bad example.
Yeah. I don't know. Wouldn't it be something, would you think it'd be fun? Like what I would like to see as a theme, because all these places are theming out, is like an updated circus. Like a carnival for adults, good. Right? Like if you're going to do a casino where it's like Jackpot Land or some crazy name that would never actually pass any marketing test, but people go, I'm going to fucking Jackpot Land.
Wonderland.
Whatever. And you go and it's got cool stuff. Like it's like you feel like a kid, but you're gambling and it's adult. Because now it seems like everybody go, well, we're very luxury, and it's the fancy pants marble and it costs you millions and millions of billions and billions of dollars to do it. And it's like, we don't need that.
No.
Put some good games. Put a slide. I want to go from the second floor to the first floor. Give me a slide. Chutes and ladders, this thing.
You know how many adults would do that?
All of them.
Yeah.
Unless you have a medical condition or a false hip, you're on the slide, man. I feel like maybe I would be. Maybe heavy duty slides, like 300 pounder my ass down there, but we're doing it.
We got to do it.
Okay. So
we have to buy Circus and relay Max Betland, which we own the rights to. If you guys want to buy it, it's for sale.
Max Betland.
Please contact Mike McKiskey.
Don't give that out. Anyway, okay. So it's, but it's fun. Just hit me on LinkedIn. So, but wouldn't that be fun?
I love it.
Yeah. I don't think they'll ever sell Circus because it's interesting. So when I was at MGM back before they were going to sell TI, there was rumors. They were like, oh, MGM's going to sell a property because I think they were trying to help fund or offset the cost of City Center.
Yep.
And everyone was like, oh, they're going to sell Circus. And I was sitting there and an executive just happened to be like around and he looks over, he goes, that is the last property they will sell. I said, well, why? Like it's old. And he goes, yeah, that's why. Because it's paid off. Like think about having multiple houses. You're not going to pay off. You're not going to sell the house that's paid off, making you a ton of cash. You're going to sell the house that's like a little bit stretched, overfund, So that would be interesting. So I don't know. I think Planet Hollywood makes sense to me. That's my guess. So hopefully whenever it's announced, we can pull this back up and go, we were wrong about the property and wrong about
it's in a great location.
Yeah. I know what I'm saying. I think that's why it's a great, but it's not. But it's, when I think of Caesars, I don't think about that. Like I think about Caesar's Palace, obviously. So I could never imagine them parting with that. But then you think about Bally's Paris, right? Some of those properties, that's just kind of, to me,
it's going to be Bally or Planet. But to your point about Circus, Bally's older as well. So Bally's
but see, to me, Bally's and Paris are so connected. Like they're literally connected. You walk one to the other. So I feel like how could you sell one and not the other?
It's going to be Planet Hollywood.
I
think we nailed it. Speaking of all these crazy deals going on, and our interviewee,
deal maker,
interviewer, we're interviewers.
We're the interviewers.
He's the interviewee. Yeah, he would be the guy that would probably be involved in one of these deal makings.
Well, I don't know if he'd be involved in this, but he would know he's done this type of thing. I mean, he's more online. So we're talking today to Matt Davey, who currently CEO of Tekkorp, who does a lot of investing. We can ask him. It seems like mostly online style gaming. So I don't know that he would be involved in a land-based transaction. He's certainly a smart enough guy to know everything about it, right? But definitely deal maker. He's done a lot of cool deals. And again, the ones I know about are all the ones that are online focused. So but yeah, you want to bring him in?
Let's do it.
Today's episode is sponsored by Acres Manufacturing. We've talked about them a ton. I don't even need to say it anymore. Chances are good if you're looking for it. They have it built. AcresManufacturing.com. Go make some money.
Here we are.
So Matt, how are you, man?
Good.
Welcome to the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Oh man, yeah, happy to have you here. It's funny. So I was going to say, oh, you're joining us from Australia, but you're from Australia, but you live here now.
That's right.
How did that come to be?
Well, so I started out, I took over a small content studio called Next Gen Gaming back in, I think, 2005.
Yeah.
And it was focused on making slot games for the online gaming space at a time when there was no third-party content producers, etc. And the Australian government at the time put a moratorium on online gaming, and then they ended up effectively banning online casinos. So I relocated my team over to London in 2008 or so. Lost my CFO, lost my head of sales. He was an ex-IGT guy. He said, look, there's no way I'm going to give up going for a surf in the morning, walk along the beach and come to the office.
Life in Oz, I'm not going to London.
Exactly. Not happening, right? So relocated there, spent 4 years building out the business there. London really was the epicenter of online gaming. Like either the companies were based in London or they came through London the whole time. So that was an exciting time. But I realized we'd solved a few problems. One, we'd built great content, and then we solved the distribution problem. We merged with a Swedish business called Nix Interactive in 2011. So we could build content and get distribution, which was excellent. But we're up against the big boys, Microgaming, Playtech, and a range of other companies, and they all had thousands of staff. And so I said to my board, look, we're not going to be able to beat them head on. Let's go to where they're not focused, and that's the heavily regulated markets. And at that time, New Jersey was starting to make moves towards iGaming. So I ended up buying a small business here in Vegas and relocating headquarters to Vegas 2013, and the rest is history.
Geez, so many questions off of that one.
I know.
So
It's just
why? Yeah, we're going to unfold that. So why is London, why was it the epicenter? Was it just a good combination of where the talent was and the regulatory and the money? Or because, I mean, I know UK, I guess, was online sports betting, but I hear a lot about like Israel for development or just different areas. So what made London the hub?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a couple of things. One, they put forward the first kind of first world regulated environment for sports betting and gaming. They did a second thing. They allowed you to set up your business overseas. So you could set up in the Isle of Man or in Malta or Gibraltar, for instance, right? They didn't just say you had to be based in the UK, which was a huge advantage for them. So they had fairly flexible rules and regulations around it. 60 million people in the UK, so it's a decent sized market. And so that became a center point. Then basically the capital markets were quite accommodative there as well. We had Party Poker that went public. They were worth more than British Airways when they IPO'd back in the day.
That's just a few bucks.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
That was back in the heyday for them. And then you had, obviously, you guys referenced Swedish companies were coming into the market. We had Israeli companies, South African companies, but they all kind of either headquartered in the UK or came through the UK. And so it was an easy place to meet. And I remember coming from Sydney, Australia, right? We could be on a plane for 5 hours and still be in Australia.
Yeah, right.
In the UK, we could be pretty much anywhere in continental Europe in 2 hours.
Right.
So it was just a great launching point to really get out there and be amongst the rest of the industry.
So did you help launch Party Poker?
No, I remember trying to sell them slot games.
Yeah.
I went to I went to Hyderabad in India back in 2001, and went to a guy called Anurag Dixit, who was one of the founders of Party Poker. And I said, you guys have got great slots, but our slots are better. We'll do 3-4 times. He's like, Matt, it's not really what we're focused on. Come and have a look at this. And so he took me down one of the rooms, and there were 50 PhD developers there building out this thing called poker. And they said, look, there's this online poker site that's doing $50,000 a week in turnover. We want to be better than them. And this is before they launched the $1 Million Cruise. Party Poker became a thing. So they went that direction, but they did have a pretty powerful online casino product as well. And we were able to integrate some of our content and get it going.
The reason I asked that is, and this is a question you could answer, is you build this platform, right? You have games, you have this whole online gaming, iGaming site, and then you switch it on and you go to sleep. And you get up in the morning and you have these ideas of how many people are going to come to the site, how many people are going to play, how many people are going to actually convert to just someone that visits your site to an actual player. What is that like?
Well, you assume he slept. I was going to say, I don't know if you were up all night first night. Yeah.
I would have been.
How'd that go? Yeah.
So we were in the content side of things, right? So we didn't worry about player acquisition, player retention, right? That was the operator's problem. So, there's obviously a really well-defined funnel going from affiliate sites through to the casino sites to getting people to register, fund their account, and then go out and play games. Yeah. I remember I started back in the late 90s. I was working for the Northern Territory Racing Gaming Authority, and we were looking at what the state of the industry was in online gaming at the time. And I remember some of the sites, because there were still dial-up modems back then, they would switch the graphics off and just show you the numbers coming through. So you bet, and then you get the numbers. Oh, wow. Because no one could be bothered waiting for the spinning of the reels.
The graphics
right?
and all that,
Things have evolved so much since then, but that was back in the other day. So no, we didn't worry about...
the true gambler.
Yeah, right. I don't care. Just show me the numbers.
Exactly.
I'm actually like, I don't mind that, right? Like, because it's really like playing the lottery. I mean, you spin the wheel and you go, I don't know. Like, it could be princess pictures or, hearts or cherries. I go, all I know is I won or I lost, right? So just show me the win or loss, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we've never had a demand issue. It's always been a supply issue.
Yeah.
I think that's continuing at pace today. We're seeing this migration from land-based analog retail to online digital. I think that'll continue to happen.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then you said at the end, I bought a small company here in Vegas, 2013. Which company was that?
Yeah, it was called Zen Entertainment.
Zen, nice.
And it was backed by one of the very famous pioneers here in Vegas, Ernie Moody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the company itself was doing some really interesting things. They were basically building a play for fun or play for free social poker like product. Freemium, but they were over-engineering the technology behind it. They effectively wanted to create it such that you could switch on for real money, but have it meet the rules and regulations of Nevada and California, New Jersey, et cetera. And that is a very big technology challenge. So we're able to acquire that business, pivot the technology. We actually got the social poker generating good revenues, and we're able to use that as a nice base. And it gave us a really good position here in the US to expand.
I noticed that throughout, it seemed like your career, whether as the CEO of companies or now like as still CEO, but more an investor, right? Yeah. You've seemed to be kind of meeting people when they're out of money, right? And is one of the symptoms of that the over-engineering? Like, because what I hear you say is they're spending a lot of money to try to deliver a product that's not making any money yet because they didn't just get the cash flow coming in. Yeah. So is that a pretty common symptom, or is that just a unique?
It is.
Yeah.
Look, I love entrepreneurs. Yeah. When my journey was going from 5 people to 1,500 before we sold our business to Scientific Games back in 2018. And, it's a great journey, and you meet all sorts of problems, and solving those problems is really rewarding. I think one of the challenges most people run into, certainly in the gambling industry, gaming is the euphemism here, they look at the product and they go, this is crap. We could do much better than that. Those spinning reels, we could do holographic spinning reels. Like, we could get a full immersive system. Yeah. But what they miss is the gamblers are after a gambling product. Yeah. If they wanted a video gaming product, they'd play their Xbox. They'd get back on their PlayStation, right? And so I tend to find a lot of people come into the industry from outside, and they think they've got the right technology solution, the right platform, the right approach, but they're missing the actual entertainment aspect of it. And so that's where you can spend a lot of money and not generate revenue. You really need to understand the industry.
You look at like those companies like Gamblet, and they were trying to create those like skill-based games, and everybody was trying to figure out how to attack the millennials or like certain, generations of younger gamblers. It's like, hey, idiots, like, just keep making good games and it'll progress slowly as it goes. Like, there's no reason to just do this huge right shifts. Yeah. I mean, you look now, you see a bunch of millennials playing slot machines, and the games are continually getting, more entertaining, not necessarily video holographic. I don't want that.
Exactly.
It's like, I play video games too. I don't need all that. I just want to gamble.
Yeah, right.
So, no, I've seen a bunch of trends come through. We had a 3D trend, and people thought, hey, we can build these slot games in 3D. It doesn't add anything to the actual emotional payoff, right? Yeah. And you're right on skill gaming. The situation that people saw was, hey, you've got all these millennials coming through. They're not gambling. But what are they doing? They're on their Xbox and PlayStation. So what we'll do is we'll build that kind of game in the gambling industry. It's kind of like saying, hey, we're in the horror movie business, but we notice a lot of people watching these Disney movies with kids. Yeah. What we'll do is we'll bang in a Disney movie in the middle of a horror movie. That way we can get the new generation, right? It just doesn't work.
Princess Jasmine just comes floating in the middle, like saves the Chainsaw Massacre.
Exactly.
Ridiculous.
We talk about players, psychographic drivers, not demographic drivers, right? Yeah. We don't really care what the demographic background is. We care about what the psychographic driver is. And so if you're playing a slot game, you're typically after chance, hope, escapism. If you're playing blackjack or poker, you're after challenge and reward and recognition. Yeah. They're different psychographic drivers.
100%.
And so if you're taking a skill game and you're banging it into the middle of a slot game, you're basically putting in skill against chance, hope, and escapism. And it's the wrong emotional payload. You're not after that experience. And so these are the kind of fundamental things you need to grow up in the industry and understand. That way you won't waste $20, $30 million building a product that no one wants.
Right.
That's the saving gap for our industry, is like the cost of entry is so much because of the licenses. And so people come in and think they have this great idea, and by the time that they get through their R&D, they're like, wait, we still need to go get a license? Yeah, hey, idiot.
Well, is that your theme today? So I'm curious, how do you figure that out? So like, as you say it, and we're looking at each other going, yeah, as gamblers, that makes a lot of sense. Because when I want to sit down and play blackjack, it's because I want to work a little. Like, I don't mind thinking about double downs or whatever. And when I'm playing slots, I just want to hit the button and win or lose. Like, I'm happy with dial-up modem number system because I'm either going to win or lose. That's it. Exactly. But is it just trial and error of being in the business since the late 90s? Or how, because
I put it down to a couple of things. One, most of the people that I know that really get it come from a content perspective, and they've really thought through the psychographic drivers of why people are involved. I think one of the challenges is you come into the industry and you look at the products, and it's easy to take a view. That slot game looks pretty basic, right? I can do better than that. And that's a mistake. What you're missing is that these are actually really, really complex products, and they've been really well thought through. And there's a whole bunch. So just on slots, for instance, You've got symbol-based priorities. You've got, do we use animal features? Do we use human features? So in your brain, humans actually rate higher than animals. So if you get the symbol priority wrong, then it's confusing when a lion gives you a higher payout than a human, for instance, right? So
interesting.
It's a whole bunch of things that are built into it, and it's not obvious. If you came from Silicon Valley and you said, hey, I've got a ton of graphic designers, etc., I can blow this stuff away, you're going to make a mistake. Yeah. What I always say is our guys aren't after an education experience. They want an entertainment experience.
Yes,
so you've got to get back to that product.
It's great. Like you even think of like the school bells that Aristocrat uses because you're like, oh, it's time for recess.
Oh, VGT especially.
And then VGT uses an actual real bell, and I don't even like just the sound of a real bell compared to a bell that's been like digitized in audio is a different feeling, has a different it's crazy. But I was gonna say, and this is kind of a perfect time to bring it up. I didn't mean to steal your question, Mike, if you were gonna say it, but Joel Simpkins calls himself the CEO Whisperer, so we're gonna go ahead and W that. Joel, if you're listening, we love you.
Anointed.
He calls you the future of gaming. So
you're the trend spotter.
The trend spotter, yeah. So we've got the CEO Whisperer and the trend spotter. What trends do you see coming down the pipe?
Look,
people should focus on?
I think that's a very flattering moniker to come up with. So thank you, Joel.
We're putting it on shirts for you. It's all good.
Yeah, I don't think that we have any kind of secret crystal ball that we look at.
Right.
I think what I kind of come back to is that there's a ton of learnings we've had in the industry over the last 30, 40 years. And so the gambling industry itself isn't about a lot of new product innovations, about how does the market evolve. And so we've seen, certainly in online gaming, for instance, it's brand new here in the US. It's 3 years old, effectively, because people point back to the start of sports betting. But we've seen this playbook before. We've seen it in the UK. We've seen it in Australasia. We've seen it roll out in Europe. And so what we're doing is we're saying, hey, we know how the market dynamics roll out. Where do we want to be placing our bets now? We're 3, 4, 5 years into the US market evolution. Where are we going to be in 5 years from now? And we've got the playbook. We've seen it in Europe. We've seen it in Australasia. And so it's not us being super smart about it. It's just saying, hey, where are we in the life cycle now? What are the new products coming through, and how do we participate in that?
Interesting. I guess that makes sense. But there are some things, I mean, humility aside, there are some things you did that I think people would point to and go, well, that was really smart. And so the one that I was reading about and caught my eye was 2013-ish, 2014, when Amaya, so another online company, went out and bought Pokerstars. And it sounds like the way I've kind of researched it, it says you were just sitting back going, well, that's interesting. So if they're buying that, well, they're going from B2B to B2C. Maybe I can take for the cheap all their B2B assets and leverage them on my thing. So is that basically how that went down? How'd you even think of that? And then, is that, am I close in describing it? Yeah.
You're 100% spot on. The backstory to that, though, is having been in the industry since the early 2000s, I'd competed against and cooperated with, we call it co-opetition, with a lot of these businesses. So Cryptologic and Chartwell were two businesses that Amaya purchased, and they were both our customers and our competitors as I was building out NYX Gaming Group.
Right.
And so when David Bazov went out and bought Pokerstars, he shifted from B2B to B2C.
Right.
I knew the assets on the B2B side. I knew them really well. Our games were integrated to their systems. We knew their customer base. We knew how their products worked. We knew their business model. So when I found out he was in Vegas, I think it was August 2014, celebrating the closing dinner, I was in Sydney at the time. I jumped on a plane, flew back and said, hey, let's catch up. I want to have a chat. And he walked in, cool as a cat, just did a $4.5 billion transaction. It was fantastic, right? And
I wonder what that walk feels like. You know what I mean? You're leaving your room like $4.5 billion. Like that's a different walk than a million walk.
No doubt.
I love it.
No, and he was incredibly charismatic. He could really control a room and he pulled off an amazing deal. Like he really brought institutional capital into the online gaming space for the first time, right? There was a really big shift in the industry on the back of that. But it was also clear that the business had pivoted fundamentally to a B2C business. And so we were able to work out a model that said we get a first right of refusal on those B2B assets. And then I took my company public in Canada at around the end of 2014 with a big part of our business plan being the acquisition of these assets. We went on to buy another 6 companies or so, including OpenBet and a range of others. But that's the genesis of it.
So random note on that. Why Canada? Like, I'm always fascinated when you say like, well, we took it public here.
Yeah.
So why is it just because you're like, hey, if we're going to buy this Canadian asset, it helps us to be on a Canadian market? Or how'd you pick that versus NYSE or an Australian exchange or something?
I'll give you the 5 seconds on that.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at which exchange to go public on, there are a couple of things that matter. One, does the investor base really understand gaming?
Okay.
And so when you think about that, you think, well, the UK does, the Australian market does, the US market does, Canadian market does. Then you look at, are there any peer companies that are similar to what your business is doing? Because that's what investors will look for. They'll say, hey, you're a slot making business. There's 5 other slot making businesses. They're valued X, Y, Z, right?
I get it. Yeah.
Then we look at size. So in the US, for instance, if you're sub $1 billion, it's very difficult to get an analyst to follow your business. And if there's no analyst following your business, it's very hard to get research reports out and therefore difficult to attract small cap institutional investors. So when I thought about the exchange, we had a Swedish business. So the Swedish stock exchange, which is NASDAQ OMX, that's actually owned by NASDAQ. That's a great exchange. Yeah. But I didn't speak Swedish. And that felt like a bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And we were based in Vegas, right? The UK was also an opportunity for us. But we knew that we had an acquisition-driven business plan. We knew that we wanted to scale up fast, and therefore we wanted to be able to use institutional capital to help fund that. And the LSE was more conservative around that. And the AIM market, which is where the small caps end up, definitely didn't kind of have the features that we wanted. So when we looked at the US, we were absolutely too small. So we could have looked at Australia or Canada as 2 really nice kind of small, mid-sized markets for us. The Australian market would have been perfect. Everyone gets gambling over there. They say Aussies will bet on 2 flies crawling up a wall. It's pretty true, right?
True.
I love that.
All the ones I know anyway. Yeah, exactly.
But we were in the casino side of that industry, not the sports betting side at the time, right? And that was illegal in Australia. So there's kind of an illegal market there, and we'd go to investors going, hey, we've got this great product, we've got all these great customers, but you can't play it in Australia. It's not a good look.
Yeah, it's not
so
good.
Canada kind of ticked the box for us along the way. And obviously the experience that investors had on the Amaya business was amazing, right? When David took the company public, it was $1 a share, and then it was $20 by the time he'd rolled up a couple of businesses. So great backdrop for us to take the company public. Yeah, that's how we thought it through.
That's experience right there. Like, how many times do you have to get beaten down to learn all of those little features?
Me 0 times, because I just asked him. But yeah, it's probably a war going on for him and those guys. Yeah, absolutely.
That's impressive. So how do you raise money with pre-revenue? So you've got this big business idea. I'm just asking as
a guy raising money pre-revenue.
Like, how do you show the value? You say, here's like our total target market. Here's what we think it's going to do, and here's why. It's much harder to raise. And even if another company's already done it and been successful, if you have 0 revenue, it's almost impossible.
So there's a couple of things. Let's just put a framework in place. Yeah. So it depends on which stage of the company's life cycle you're in at this point. Yeah. So if you're pre-revenue and pre-product, you're really at the seed round. Right? Typically, you're talking to high net worths or angel investors and saying, hey, I've got this amazing idea. We're going to build 3D slots that are holographic, and they're going to jump out and they're going to be incredible. Right? We haven't launched any, we haven't built any.
But we think it's going to be amazing.
We think it's going to be amazing.
Right.
And so valuing a business at that point it's pure art. It's not science. But typically people go, I think it's worth $5 million or $10 million or $20 million, something like that, right? They don't go, it's worth $1 million. If you give me $500,000, you get half the company, right? So, but that's, you're taking a real fly on the management, on the team that's put it together, and how you feel about that idea. You really don't know how it's going to work. Then you've got a business that moves beyond that, and they say, actually, we've built the product now, we're ready to launch. And if you're B2B, it's a different strategy than if you're B2C. B2C, you have to build out a brand, so it's a marketing thing. If you're B2B, it's a direct sales. Right? You're going out to IGT and Cygames and others saying, hey, I've got this great product, let's integrate it to your system, and then you guys can go out and sell it. So that's a different kind of valuation question mark. And then once you've built the product, launched it, and you've got some revenues, you're like, well, look, the opportunity space, the total addressable market, we talk about the TAM, is huge. For us to really capture that ahead of our competitors, we need to raise more money so that we can accelerate product development, distribution, sales, marketing, et cetera. And so you can go out and raise. And all of that can happen both private and publicly as well. We've seen a lot of companies go public, for instance, kind of pre-revenue, which is kind of
That's
unique.
always fascinating to me. Like when it's like, oh, you know, I remember you're publicly like, what is the public doing here? Like, you know, because I get the first part where you're going, hey, we have a great idea, we haven't launched it yet, but we can relate, and that's how I would expect it to go. Like, hey, you just need to. It's almost a sales job. Can I get whoever it is to give me however much I need, and that's the mission. But then once you have the revenues on, that's when the value, it's almost easy because you go, look, we're already generating.
You have a
this.
sword now.
Well, you have something to base it on, right? Like, because you're going, like, because, you know, if I said, hey, that coffee should cost $26, he's going, get out of here. I'm not paying that. But there's no basis for it until somebody values it and puts it out there. There's no baseline, right?
That coffee might have cost $26 at the Starbucks.
Inflationary environment. Sorry, SB. But anyway, so. Yeah, that's interesting.
There's a couple other nuances here as well.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you've got a product, you're out there, you're generating revenue, but you haven't made any money yet. Your expenses are more than your
profitability.
revenue, right?
Yeah.
So people then value on a revenue multiple. The moment you start driving profitability, you get positive EBITDA, and people start to think, well, what about the EBITDA line? And they give you an EBITDA multiple. Now, most entrepreneurs I know, they prefer to be valued on the revenue multiple than the EBITDA multiple, right? Because you can always drive sales. I remember chatting with a guy setting up a sports book out of Australia, and he said, look, Matt, I can get a $500 million turnover sports book tomorrow. All I do is I misprice my odds, right? So you're effectively running at a loss. Everyone comes and bets on the site, but your revenue goes through the roof. It doesn't mean it's a good business.
Yeah,
but
you take it off the
exactly. So there are a range of different things you look at, and often you hear people complain, I should never have made a profit. Now I'm being valued on my EBITDA multiple, not my revenue multiple.
Taking notes?
Well, we're recording it, so I can always rewatch this
good,
when we go live.
Okay, yeah.
Have you forgotten where you are, sir?
Oh, we're live.
But yeah, so I didn't necessarily say we're going down the investment road, but as far as, is there a scenario where it's one versus the other? So is it basically if your business is losing money, you have to use revenue as your guide, whereas as soon as you're profitable, it becomes EBITDA based, or is there?
Not really. There are rules of thumb that investors look at. They look at what is the addressable market space?
Right.
What's the competitive market look like? What are your peers getting valued at? Are they, even though they're generating profits, are they still valued on a revenue multiple? Why you tend to look at revenue is if you're in a high growth business. If you're growing at greater than 25% compound annual growth rate CAGR per annum, then you typically get more of a revenue multiple than you do on an EBITDA multiple. So there's a range of rules of thumb as we think about it.
My neighbor's building a new bathroom, it sounds like.
Just
I got saws going on.
It's fine. You can't really hear it as much. Yeah, that's interesting. So the latest thing, and we were just talking about it because to me the number is gigantic. You've done $1 billion deals, so it's maybe not surprising to you, but the Aristocrat deal to buy Playtech, for $2.9 billion US. And what I love about the international companies is in the local pubs, they write it in their currency. So you wake up and you go, it's 2.9 billion. Over here, it's 5 billion. Over here, it's 20. And you're like, wait, what? What's the number? And it's like, oh, okay, they're just currency.
Pounds. I thought it was US. That's going to cost me another.
So you don't have to dive in the balance sheet stuff here, but what's your thoughts on that move? Smart move.
I think it's a great move.
Upside. Yeah.
Look, if you think about the way the market's evolving, so in the US, iGaming and sports betting is not going away, right? And what's driving is consumer preferences, right? They're moving from land-based retail, analog to online digital, and it's in every market. It's entertainment, it's music, it's banking, etc. And gaming, it shouldn't be any different. So you need to be a player in that marketplace. And from a B2B side, how do you get into the online gaming space? Yeah. You could spend 5 years reconstituting all of the graphics and games you've got and building online versions of it, building out a platform and etc. Or you can become a player overnight by buying one of the existing suppliers. And Playtech's a phenomenal business. I've competed with them, and they were also one of our first customers back in the day. And so an amazing company, 5,000 employees, licensed all around the world, and an incredible product set. So I think it's a great combination with Aristocrat. I would note that the stock price of Playtech today is trading above the offer price of Aristocrat. Aristocrat offered £6.80 and the stock's trading over £7 at the moment. So the market's kind of telling you that I don't think this is quite the end of the story yet.
Interesting.
It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, that is. So.
By the way, they paid cash for that. So Aristocrat went to the bank and just suitcase money over to Playtech.
First of all, I know that's not how it actually went down, but wouldn't that be fantastic to just send like 50 guys or however many you need with big duffels like at the end of Ocean's 11? Oh, man.
That's how I envision it in my head. That's not how it goes.
No, I don't. Matt would know. So what would that signal? So if the investment or the market's saying, well, we don't think it's 680, is that, I mean, because it sounded to me like they said, we'll offer you, call it $3 billion, and the other guy said, we accept. And now, I mean, what would change that? That Playtech could still go back and say, well, actually the market thinks it's $1 per share more, so it's $4 billion or whatever, right?
Yeah. It's basically investors in the market saying they think that someone else is going to come out and bid more.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay. That could be. Well, we'll see. Maybe because that Entain deal fell apart with all DK. Maybe they're rumor. I don't know. We'll see. This is all speculative. I have no idea. I don't do anything based on what I say. So you mentioned earlier, you said, look, we've seen some of these playbooks before. Like Europe is mature in this space and Australasia is further ahead than the U.S. So based on those playbooks that are 10 or 20 pages ahead, where are we going next here in the States?
Fabulous question. So the States, I think, has experienced 10 years worth of growth in the last 3 years, right?
Yeah.
It's happening at a rapid rate. Couple of observations. One, sports betting companies typically operate at scale, and that scale lends to market dominance. So in each of the major kind of markets around the world, you'll find there's a 1, 2, and 3 sports betting operator. They're profitable. They're well established. You typically don't see numbers 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 making decent profits.
Yeah.
So that works. In iGaming though, you can have small guys, medium guys, and large guys all making money. So the actual way the businesses are structured is quite different. It's largely down to the marketing spend that sports betting operators have to fund. That said, the leadership of who's number 1, 2, and 3 today can change over time. And I'll give you a good example. Sky Betting Gaming and William Hill both joined in funding the acquisition of OpenBet when I purchased the business back in 2016.
Yep.
Sky Betting Gaming was roughly number 4 in the market at that time. Fast forward 3 or 4 years later, they were number 1. And this is a market that's been around for 15 years or so. So you could think it was quite well developed and mature and that the market leadership was well established. But the flywheel effect of what Richard Flint and the team at Sky Betting Gaming had established continued to propel them forward.
Yep.
And so anyone today calling the market leadership of the US sports betting businesses, I think is making a mistake. I think there's plenty of room for that leadership to change over time, and I think we'll see additional entrants into the market. And the US it's such a huge market, right? It's 330 million people with 50 states, highly fragmented. So you could see regional powers at play.
Absolutely.
You could see East Coast leadership, Midwest, etc. So it's certainly going to be interesting. So I wouldn't be ringing the bell at this point saying, the top 3 are going to be the top 3. I would say that we're subject to significant change over the next 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah. And it's going to be fun to watch.
It's interesting to see all these big sports betting companies try to take market share, right? And then you kind of like back it up to the operator. They have to make a very smart decision on who they choose, because you can't really like keep switching sports betting companies because it's going to tie into iGaming and everything gets to be a little like, that's a tough decision to make for a land-based operator's decision. And we're not mature yet in the sports betting arena, but these guys all have to make a decision pretty soon. I mean, like, if you want to be competitive in your market and you have iGaming coming and you don't have a sports betting platform, better make a decision. Yeah. In my opinion, I mean, that would be a big, we talked to a lot of these, brick and mortar online,
especially in the tribal
tribal, and they have no idea what to do. They're like, I have 100 different sports betting companies coming to me daily and I don't know who to pick. Yeah. That's pretty wild. I mean,
it's going to be really interesting to watch. A couple of other kind of concepts to kind of bring home here. One, a lot of people talk about the tech stack within these businesses. That's less important at this stage in the market cycle. What's important at the moment is branding and marketing, because players still don't know that there's product that's offered out there. In New Jersey alone, for instance, I think something like 60% of people that were interviewed about a year or two ago thought online gaming was still illegal, right? So there's a whole education process, right, to go through. So in the early market expansion phase, it's marketing over product. People are less price sensitive and less product sensitive. They're more about, was that bonus offer, something that motivated me to sign up and deposit with that site. So over time, though, as the market matures, high quality product rises to the top. And it becomes less about the marketing side, more about the quality of the product service, etc. That said, no player I've ever met cares about your database. They don't care about the SQL service behind it. They don't care at all, right? So all of that is kind of underneath it. What they care about is the user journey. They care about the friction points.
Yeah.
They care about speed of access, getting the bets that they're after, and being able to deposit and withdraw cash as quick as you can. So it's the kind of hygiene things. And underneath all that, obviously, sits the technology. So I think people can over-rotate on it. And at this point, it's not the driver here. What's driving things is this marketing side of the business.
What's your take on virtual sports betting with like VR goggles on? VR betting? I mean, I feel like that's the new
I love
skill-based gaming kind of. It's like,
Yeah.
this is the online gaming.
it. I love it. And I think the challenge is VR versus AR.
Yeah.
It's augmented reality versus virtual reality. And I'm not smart enough to know which one's going to come through.
Yeah.
But I think they're both really interesting technologies. And I think what we're doing is we're layering over existing content some really interesting dimensions around it. And I think that just makes it more interesting, more exciting.
Yeah, I don't know which one will be long term, but I feel like AR is just easier.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not a coder, but like it's easier to understand because it's like where you say, hey, AR to me is like I look at you, and if somehow you were programmed in, it would go, oh, that's Landon. He was born on this day, and da-da-da. And you're still here, but there's a supplement. Like it's almost like having that eyepiece on, and we talk about esports like in Call of Duty. VR is the full goggles. You're not on Earth anymore. You're in this world, right? Like that just seems like it would be so much harder to build that I feel like it would just take longer, right? And it'd be a little bit, you'd have to have more faith to jump into that as a player than you would just to do some kind of cool phone tricks, right, in reality.
I'll give you some examples of where I've got it wrong or had a learning experience,
Perfect,
right?
yeah.
So,
Good question for yourself.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you for helping us interview properly.
Thank you.
So back in the day, a couple of companies came along and said, we're going to do live dealers over the internet.
Yeah.
I'm like, why would you do that? It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. So you want to see a live deal, go to a physical
casino. Yeah.
Exactly. The internet's perfect for having electronically developed, computerized, product offering. Turns out there's a huge market for live dealing.
Yeah.
Evolution Gaming is one of the most powerful companies on the planet, right?
Right.
And they've done it really well, and they've done it up against a lot of competition. So I got that wrong. Second, I remember I got a phone call from Gigi Leber, who was the CEO of 888 at the time back in 2010, I think. And he said, you got to meet some guys at ICE, International Casino Expo, and they've got this great product. So I meet these guys, they got dreadlocks, nose ring, tattoos.
Yeah, cool.
And they said, look, we run this casino inside Facebook. I'm like, how does it work? They're like, well, it's free, but people can buy coins if they run out of coins. And they drilled down on this lady in Pleasantville in New South Wales, Australia, and showed me, outside a street, they really knew their play base. I'm like, why would anybody do that?
Yeah.
You could go to any online casino on the planet and you can play for free anytime you want. Like, why? So it turns out there's a market for it. And so trying to forecast whether it's VR, AR today, we don't know. The market will tell you. And the key thing there is just to be flexible about it and keep your mind open and see what comes forward.
You look at Evolution, I feel like they're like the Peloton of gaming, right? You get to go and pick your dealer, sit next to someone. I think before we get VR, not that you're asking my opinion, but before we get VR right, we have to kind of be able to merge entertainment and virtual reality on like a social scale first before we bring it into like the casino world. Like if you're at your house, I'm like, what are you doing? Let's have a meeting. I put my VR goggles on, we go into your office and, whiteboard. Like we've got to get that right first before we bring it into like the gaming space.
So you don't think the casino sector could lead?
I don't think so. I think we've got to like condition people to be used to it, to like really have the faith that I'm putting my VR goggles and I'm going over to whatever Circa, right? It's just down the street. So like, I think we need to get that piece right and condition the players first before like, hey, we've got virtual reality, come to our casino. It's like, I don't really know about that. I haven't even ever done it other than Call of Duty. I'm not going to go gamble at a casino and feel comfortable. I don't know. This is my theory.
You agree? I mean, do you think it has to be mainstream adopted before you can niche it out to gaming? Or do you think gaming could potentially be a leader? Not necessarily VR, but just in any new cool technology.
Yeah, I'm not smart enough to figure that out.
Me neither.
What I will say is...
All right, Captain Humility. We'll figure this out.
We'll definitely learn a lot as we watch it go through. Like, for instance, who would have predicted short form video format would be, incredibly powerful? Like TikTok, right? Who would have picked that? You got YouTube, you got long form video format, but short form really worked, and there's clearly a market for it. So,
and to your point, like there was already a leader in the space. You had Instagram, Snap. I mean, it didn't seem like there was much room for anybody, and TikTok came in and took over the whole show. What do you think of that, Mike?
I love it. I think it's power of music, though.
Yeah.
I feel like, because to me, the thing that TikTok is like, what hooks me is I like this song. And then you can sort the song and see all the people doing their creative version of that jam. And then you go, oh, that's pretty cool. And then, now it's the more, but I think that was the driver.
Yeah, the
where
hook.
they said, how can we do it just a little different?
Yeah.
You know, so
Add a little more value.
yeah. So what trends are you looking forward to now? So you've established a lot of the ones you've already either missed or captured. What's your next bet?
So I get the luxury of being able to sit back and look at companies at all the various different stages. So I'm looking at mature businesses that are growing nicely and we can put capital to work with them. And then I get to meet a whole bunch of entrepreneurs that say, hey, we've got the next greatest thing. And I get to sit back and think, do I believe it? Do I not believe it? Do I get excited by it? And then I can put money to work in the right kind of business. So everything from seed to growth capital to public listed companies. And so it's an exciting time. I think we've got a pretty good sense for what gamblers are looking for, both from sports betting and kind of casino side. But can I predict what business models are going to be the ones that dominate in the future? No.
Right.
So this is the exciting part. You get to back some great entrepreneurs.
Yep.
I'll give you another example.
Yeah, please.
So live dealer in social never worked. People tried it hundreds of times. And then I met a gentleman who was creating basically a live bingo product inside a social product. And it worked really well.
This live play bingo?
Exactly.
Yeah, Stuart.
Yeah.
He seems like a really good guy. We met him at G2.
Great guy.
He was a stud.
Good background, really came from GSN and a bunch of others. So right background, but you're backing an entrepreneur to do something different. Now, it could have totally failed.
Sure.
Turns out it's a great product. I started playing. I'm like, I really enjoy this. Like he's really nailed that combination, right? But prior to that, there were no good examples of that business model or that style working. And he's made it a great success, and we're happy investors in it.
But is that, see, to me, and this is why, I don't run a company that invests in things because I don't have a good framework for it. But to me, I go, that's more exciting to me. It's never been done. Wouldn't you want to bet on the guy that's going to blaze the trail? I get what you're saying where you go, well, yeah, but that trail could be daunting and impossible to traverse, right? But it's like, man, I feel like maybe I'm just a long shot gambler, but I don't know. So hearing you say that, I'm like, is that a negative or a positive? Like to me, I feel like that's good if the guy's the right guy. Yeah,
it's exciting. And you know what? We'll continue to see entrepreneurs come to the table and they'll say, hey, we've looked at this problem. We think we've got a better idea. Here's how to do it. And sometimes you'll get those that come out with a skill-based product and you're like, that makes no sense. Others will say, hey, we're going to do holographic 3D slots. Again, I know from experience, it doesn't make any sense. But then you'll get others that say, hey, we've got this live dealer product we can roll out inside the app store and it's going to be phenomenal. And you're like, great, that really works. So
interesting.
The power of bingo. A lot of things that people are missing too is the power of influencers, right? This industry has been missing influencers forever. And now, like you look at any other industry, we talk about it all the time, but it keeps coming back to this. You look at any other industry, travel, cars, cooking, everything. They have millions of influencers that you go look at a 325 BMW. There's 400,000 reviews on it. So people are swayed in terms of what they want to buy just based off of like their influencer, you know, what influencers are around them or what videos they watch or what social media platforms they're on. That affects their purchasing decision 110%.
Totally agree.
But in the gaming space, that's never existed.
So we're seeing that more and more now.
Yeah.
So there's a great slot development company, Evolution owns it now, called Big Time Gaming.
Yeah.
They built some really nice products. One of the first products that really got market traction was Bonanza. And that the first time I really kind of came across it was when a slot influencer was playing it, right? And he had like, you know, I don't know, a couple 100,000 people watching him play slots now. Yeah. If anyone knows slots, like they're not predictable, they're random generated. So you could be watching for a long time and nothing fun happens, right? So, but they're able to create enough excitement around it to get a lot of people watching. And that influences people to come out there and play that product. So we're seeing that definitely come into the marketing promotion side for new game content that's coming into the online space, particularly in Europe.
Well, and it helps educate players that are like you just said. I mean, you look at certain markets like Oklahoma, they have games that just work in Oklahoma. Right. You put them here and everybody's like, I don't know that game. Exactly. But if you create like a brand around it and a little lifestyle and a following, all of a sudden players are here like, why don't we have those games? And you just create a lifestyle branding around influencers.
To the point earlier, like, and he was saying, like, you know, here at least it seems like the top 4 easily profitable, and then the lower ranks not always. Whereas in online, it can be that way. I always felt like for land based, if you're in the number 8 slot, it's hard to move up. Yeah, and you're not going to move up because your game has cool graphics or because it might have a cool math. It's going to be, I think, the players that watch it. By Landon makes a video online and goes, did you ever see this game? No one's ever heard of it, but it's amazing. And all of a sudden people go, well, why don't you, Mr. Casino, have that game? and then the players demand it, and that's potentially a good way for the number 8 guy to grow. Number 1, like the Aristocrats and the Psy Games, they're already there. All their new stuff is going to get a stage, but it's really hard, I feel like, for some of these guys to get the stage if you're just a small little slot developer, because you're not licensed everywhere. You may not have any reputation, but you might have a good thing, and power of the mob, right? It's like Gladiator.
It's crazy. I look at the table game space. So table games, I sold table games for a long time, and like new versions of games. It was very difficult because the one person that you had to sell on that table game was the dealer. The dealer didn't understand or didn't like dealing it. You were already dead in the water.
Yeah.
People sit down and be like, don't play this game. This game sucks.
Yeah.
Pound sand, go that way.
So
because he doesn't want to deal it.
There's a lot of fail points, right? You
a lot of fail points,
yeah.
right? But players think about that. When I hit the casino floor, I'm looking at like, what do I know? What kind of experience am I looking for? And I look for those games based on my previous experiences, right? But then, like, to your point, I watched Brian Christopher playing a fun game that I necessarily wouldn't have put money in. I'm like, wait, that was a fun feature. I want to get into that. Where's that game? And it changes what I play for sure. But
yeah, so not necessarily influencer based, but you mentioned Stuart and his live play bingo game. What are some of the other companies that you've backed or that you're looking at now that you're going, I'm excited to see this? I mean, it sounds like, I mean, you guys are a multi-billion-dollar company, so it's like, obviously there's many, but is there a couple that you go, I'm looking at that one going, I can't wait to wake up and see what they're doing? Like, do you have some that you're more excited about than?
Look, I guess that's one of the best parts about what I get to do is I get to talk to entrepreneurs
all day.
Yeah. And, a lot of the time there's a lot of noise and fluff, but we can cut through that because we've got 20, 30 years of experience in the marketplace. But every now and then you come across something like, wow, that's really cool. That's really neat. I'll give you another example. Gamblet Rewards. It's Canadian business. They've basically patented. They come from the finance industry. They said, look, all these loyalty reward points are out there with Hilton, Marriott, Amex, etc. There's a step-by-step process to convert those into gaming credits. Effectively, you can then go bet on sports and casinos, etc., and then cash out in real cash. So you're taking the loyalty world and you're basically creating an entertainment product out of it. Yeah. And all those loyalty points, they're a liability sitting on
absolutely.
Like
oh, for sure.
Are those, so is that business in practice right now? Like that's happening?
Yep.
See, so to me, I didn't hear about that. So, but I love that. Cause you know what I'm a sucker for? Like I fly mostly Southwest, not that it matters cause I'm Western USA. But whenever I go east, it's Delta or American, right? And if you're going international, it's Delta or American. So for me anyway. And so it's like, so I get all these weird points. And Delta was like, well, you have 60,000 points. And it's like, well, that's not good for anything. So then they send me a thing, well, you can redeem it for magazines. So I'm the sucker that goes, all right, so send me these 4 magazines for a year for no charge and wipe out the points I'm never going to use. But I'd much rather convert it and gamble with it. Right? You know what? Give me whatever that equates to, $100 or I don't know. It's probably more than that. And I'll go gamble it because that's what I do. So that's awesome. Yeah. I think that would be great.
And look, I came across other entrepreneurs trying to solve for this problem like 10, 15 years ago. And they're like, if you fly overseas, you're in international airspace, maybe we can then do gambling
on the
points
plane.
on the plane, right?
Interesting.
But no one could get like American Airlines or Delta or anyone, comfortable with it. So this set of entrepreneurs were able to crack that nut. They were able to say, here's how it works. We've got regulatory reviews on it now. We've got the product built out and, it's working well in the marketplace. So
yeah, because I guess I'm assuming at a base level, right? Like, and I'll just use the Delta example. Delta's like, all right, I got whatever 50,000 miles on my account. They probably assign like you said, a liability of what that costs them in cash. So they're going to say, okay, that 50,000 is $500. I don't know what the number is. So if these guys come in and go, cool, we'll buy the 500. We'll basically just redeem that, and then they'd get the money, and now the 500 comes from them to me, not from Delta necessarily. Like it's like a multi-party thing. Like, I don't know. Why does Delta care? Like they're going, hey, I just got cash for miles. I'm done with it. You're now the deal. You got it. Like you said earlier, it's your problem now. Like you got to go figure that gambling thing out.
Exactly.
Similar to like what Acres is doing a little bit, where they take like a couple points and you can put it on a game, or we were talking about possibly buying a lottery ticket. You think you get like $4 for playing for an hour, and you're like, this is shit. What am I going to do with $4? But then all of a sudden you have a chance to win $1 billion. Right. It's never going to happen, but just that, like that fun, I got a lottery ticket for tonight off that $4 it would have washed away. Yep. It's pretty wild. It's
very clever.
That's a pretty cool concept.
Oh man.
Your head's just rolling. I can see it over there.
See, Matt's like this kind of guy, like the mindset. I just want to sit around you and listen to you. Like, you learn a lot. Like even just the psychographic thing earlier going, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Right. So yeah, my mind is spinning. But I was. How are we doing? We gonna keep going? Are we to the gambling story part?
Oh yeah, we can. We can go. Yeah, we're on gambling story.
Okay.
I just want to
wasn't sure.
continue.
Yeah, I know.
chat.
That's what I'm saying. We could talk all day, but we just got to keep it right.
I hope everybody made it through the raise section. If you were like kind of lost on your drive and you made it through this section, you're welcome. This is kind of cool information.
These are the best chats, man. No structure.
So we ask every guest this, and we are a gambling podcast, so we like to ask our guests to share a gambling story. It doesn't have to be you going out. It could be you investing in a company.
He's Australian. He has gambling stories.
This is why
not to blacklist the whole people.
I'm
but
hoping it's two flies on the walls racing, and he lost $1,000 on the fatter fly.
So what happened, man?
Yeah.
What jumps out to you when you think about one of your gambling stories from growing up?
Well, so I did a degree in electrical engineering, so very logic driven, wasn't involved in or interested in gambling at all. But it really, coming at the industry from, I started actually working for the Racing Gaming Authority. So I came at it from a regulatory perspective.
Yeah.
And so I knew the odds. I knew the mathematics behind it. I knew how the software was developed.
Yeah.
I actually did some software development myself back in the day. So it became very counterintuitive for me to actually get into it. But the more I got into the products, just slots, for instance, right? This is where I started. The more I could get into the emotional payload, the more I could experience how exciting it can be just to get this random result here. I remember I was at a pub in Sydney, and we used to call it the boardroom. Friday afternoon. You don't see it too much here in the US, but in Australia, Friday afternoon we'd all go down to the pub, and I'd grab a bunch of my execs, and we would grab some beers and play some of the slots. And I remember we were sitting outside. It was a beautiful sunny day, and I had to go hit the head. So I walked past banker slot machines, put in $100. Won $4,500. Right?
Yes.
And I'm like, this is what it's all about, right?
Yeah,
right. At this point, I'm hooked.
You're
for
in
life,
now.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember the barman had to come out and he had to peel out a whole bunch of hundreds, and then he had to write a check for the rest because you weren't able to like give it. I'm like, this is it. So I came back to the guys. I'm like, look, rounds on me. But there's something amazing about that experience, and every gambler kind of can draw on that experience.
Yeah.
And we used to tell our customers that, we'd launch a game and someone would have a huge win. We're like, that's the best thing ever for you, because that customer's never going away now, right? They're hooked for life. So no, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think everybody has one of those. Anyone that sticks with it long enough has the early win, because you're right. That's where you're going, well, I start off with 100, now I got 45. Like,
and I was just
too good to be. And all I did,
I
was just quick bang, right? Like, no big deal. Oh, that's awesome.
That's hilarious.
So the other thing we do is the Max Bet Challenge. So we ask you to kind of nominate somebody to come and sit in your seat and chat with us. And I laugh because we've seen a huge influx of offline challenges, right? Like Joel, him and I were going back and forth, and he goes, "You need to talk to Matt Davey." I go, "I'm in."
Why.
I go, "I've known your name. I mean, I know who you were. Obviously, we hadn't really connected, but I was just like, I'm in immediately." And he's like, I'll text him. And so you accepted the offline challenge from Joel. Thank you for doing that. So who would you like to see us? Who do you think would be a good chat?
I think the challenge is you guys have interviewed so many great people already.
We should have a board.
Exactly.
So that when you look at it, you go, okay, none of them, right? Yeah. So like then you know who to call out. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd have to go back through your list.
Well, we haven't gone too. What I will say is we haven't gone too far into the online space or the sports space, right? So, based on our history, a lot of the folks we've talked to are kind of land-based connections. So, I think if you challenge somebody that's doing anything cool in like a land-based or not a land, like an interactive or type of space, you'll probably have a safe pasture to name somebody. So.
All right, let me come back to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
We're doing offline.
I like it. Yeah, offline. There you go.
Do a question mark here.
That's
Keep everybody tuned in.
The old mystery machine.
The old mystery
machine.
Scooby Dooby.
Well, Matt, this has been fun, man. Appreciate you joining us.
Great seeing you guys. Love the setup.
I wish I was more prepared for this interview. This is the guy I wanted to be talking to.
Do your homework, buddy. You spent 2 hours on British cartoons.
I spent 4 hours setting up this dumb podcast. I couldn't do the research, but we are LinkedIn friends now, so that makes me happy.
Attaboy. All right.
Well, thanks for coming on, and rock and roll.
Right on. Thanks, brother.
Credit to you guys. Love it.
Appreciate it.